Alright, this tutorial video is about QLC and moving light properties and presets. So presets can be extremely helpful when you're dealing with moving lights, because moving lights have several DMX channels and each one is dealing with a different property. For instance, you have one channel that might be dealing with color, or you may have three channels that are dealing with color if you're dealing with a RGB moving light. Then you may have a gobo wheel in there that's changing the pattern on the floor. And then you may have an iris in there that's changing things. And in the case of this moving light that I programmed here, I have a color wheel. So instead of RGB, I'm just dealing with a color wheel. But then I have a gobo wheel. I put in some effects in case you wanted to use them. And then also some positions. And then also intensity. So you have several different properties here. So it's very helpful to have different presets set up where you can call up these different properties quickly and get the light positioned and where you want it to work for you. So let's take a look. So again, just two moving lights. I think in fixtures, these are Intimidator Spot 110s, and I have two of them in there. Now what I did is I went into the functions menu, and for here, for example, I just saved gobos. So if we look at the information, it's only one channel of information, just the gobo information. And then colors, if we look here, you'll see that it's just the color wheel information. All right, and then if you look at the eye spot positions, you'll see that this is just the pan and tilt information. Now, in order to do all these separate ones, what I had to do is bring this up and use all the channels. So I had to turn on a color, and I had to, at least a color, and I had to turn on an intensity, move the lights where I wanted them to be. Then I just unchecked these. So when it was saved here, it was just saved as pan and tilt information. It wasn't saved as color wheel information plus intensity information. So that's how you would do that. To get started here, I created these basic positions by doing that. Went through, located them on the stage. For instance, if I do turn on color and intensity here and bring this up, you'll see that this actually comes up. That spot actually comes up. But what I did is after I positioned the lights, I got rid of this information and said, so basically it's just saving the pan and tilt information for me. Okay, so then we included that in the virtual console. So here's my color wheel positions. Down here, these are actually chases where it's actually changing color, red, green, or red, blue. So I actually included that. It's a little more complex than I might need. Here's my gobo wheel positions, and I can select them real quickly. The effects, again, I just put these in as a kind of a plus if I wanted to do something with including an effect. And then here are some positions that I've recorded. And then here's my, here actually is my intensity over here. This is my pan and tilt for light 1 and then pan and tilt for light 2. Now you're probably wondering why I didn't use the little box, because one of the widgets they have is the ability to use this box up here and then just drag the center of the light around. Well, I found out that I couldn't do override positions with that, but if I put the pan and tilt on a slider, then I can do override positions with that. So let's say we just wanted to do some programming. We got in, let me back up a second. Let me just put it up. We'll put in a par color here. So I'm going to do pars pink at 50%. Oh, oops, got to be in run mode. There we go. Pars pink at 50%. So my pars are up. Then I go to my eye spot page and I say I want my eye spot to be blue. We're going to use the open gobo for right now. I'm going to do full intensity, and I'm going to do locate, which puts them up at the front of the stage like this. Now I can go with this and take my light number 1, and let's see, we're going to move it back. By the way, what you're going to want to try to do with these to keep the light movement down to a minimum is these are set up at the 50% value right in the middle. Try to stay around that area. Don't go drastic up or down because it'll cause the light to have to gyrate around a lot to find its position. But you know, I can pan it up to the back wall and I can tilt it out toward the audience, whatever I want to do there, just by moving it a little bit past The locate position actually puts them right at 50%. And again, if I get rid of this, they're going to go back to the locate position there. All right. Notice that the locate spot doesn't change. That's because most of these qualities in here are LTP. Latest takes precedence, except for intensity. So even if I unselect this, the last bit of information that these lights got was to go to this locate position. So that's where they'll stay until they get a new piece of information to move somewhere else. Whereas intensity, if I was to take that away, then the lights would actually go out. Because intensity is HTP, highest takes precedence. So I think I have a video about that explaining too, so maybe that'll help you out. But so anyway, let's go back, relocate them. Now I want to move this one around a little bit, so I actually want this upstage right. So I move my first light back there, upstage right. Then I move my other light back there, second light, and move that upstage right so they can hit the same spot. Then, like we did, we just go in and record this, and we can record this as a scene. So I would say record scene 5. Let me just get this window out of the way so you can see. And it asked me here, do I want to add this to my main cues? I could say yes. Okay. So now when I look at my cues, you'll see that scene 5 is in there. And if I'm progressing through, you'll see that scene 5. Now, unfortunately, you can't edit this cue list while you're in run mode. And I think I talked about this in an earlier video. We basically, let's go back to our eye spot and make sure everything's turned off here. Press V to reset these, or you can click down there. I mean, get rid of the locate button. Get rid of that, get rid of that. And we're going to go over here. We can press X to reset those. Get rid of the pink. Get rid of that. So those values are out. And now everything's gone off the stage. Now I'll go out of run mode. If I go back here to my functions, I now have that scene 5 in there. So now I can take my main cue list, and you notice that scene 5 is there. It has been put into the cue list. Now I can adjust where that's going to be, and I can adjust the timing, etc., etc. So it does go back into there, but I've got to kind of move it around and tweak it. Unfortunately, you cannot tweak where things appear. This cue list can't be tweaked until you go back into edit mode and you go back over here to functions to tweak the cue list. But again, you can do some corrections and come back and label them and then move them around when you're done, and then you have your corrections done. So let's go back and take a look at that, for example. So let's say we're up and running, and I have, we're going to use our cue list. We start out here, and I say go, and there's my scene 1B. And again, just a tip for moving lights. You notice how they swung into position. So you always want to move your lights in the dark and then have the lights come on. So that's another benefit of, using that preset. So you can move them in and turn off the color, or turn off the intensity, bring the intensity down, save that. Now you have your lights in the correct position, and then in the very next cue, bring your intensity up. So now the light's already in position with the correct gobo and the correct color wheel, and everything's the way you want it. When you bring the intensity up, it's where you want it. Otherwise, the light's going to swing. Now, for those of you that are doing like DJ programming, you might want to see the lights swing. But again, most of my tutorials here are kind of aimed toward theatrical people. If you have a community theater and you're lucky enough to have a moving light, then this might be something you want to do. Let's go to the next cue here. So the next cue, we had these, and you notice how it went to 2 different colors. That's because the color wheel is spinning. So again, you got to think about, okay, what do my moving lights do? When I went from the scene A color, let me go back here. The red color wheel gel is in a different position than the blue color wheel gel. Unfortunately, the green color wheel gel is in between. So as it was moving from red to blue, you saw the green gel there for a moment, and then it moved over. Again, a reason that if you're doing this for the theater, you want to bring the intensity out of the cue, move the light, change the color, then bring the intensity back up, if you possibly can. Otherwise, you're going to see that color wheel spinning through there. Now that we are in scene 2, I can go back to my eye spot, and I can edit in here. So I can say, again, I didn't do any tweaking, but I can say, well, maybe I'd rather have these lights be orange back there. So I can click on the orange and change the color. And position-wise, I need them to be more center stage. Or if I want to tweak, like I say, you know what, This actor is standing a little bit closer to the back wall. I really need to get this light up a little bit higher. And I need to do the same thing for the other one. It needs to come up a little bit higher and maybe over a little bit so it can hit the actor. So now I've adjusted that cue, and in my cue list, that was Q2, but then I would go and just say, save this scene to A. So I know that it's been adjusted or changed. Say, OK. And I'm going to save it to the main cue list. OK. Now we'll go back out of here. We'll turn everything off that we can, do our presets. Oh, that's our pars. We didn't have anything set there. And we'll go here, turn the orange off, reset these guys by pressing the V. It's all preset back. Go out of run mode. Oops, we're running functions because we're in the cue list. Silly me. Back to my cue list, say stop. There, it takes everything off the stage. Now go out of run mode, go into edit, go back over to my functions. And this is one of the tricky things here. Notice that scene 2A. It's just a little quirk that they had there. When I first looked at it, it's like, where's my scene 2A? Sometimes you have to click somewhere and then go back here to your chaser, and then it appears there. So again, I would just go in here and edit this now. Scene 2A, I'm going to move it up here to replace scene 2. I'm going to select scene 2 and just delete scene 2. So now my scene 2A is being fixed. All right, I've got my spots where they need to be, and it's all done. All right, so I really think that this idea of presets, it just makes it a lot faster to program and do your scenes. And then it also makes it easier once you're up and running your cues to go ahead and edit them and then just save them as edited scenes. A little bit of a pain that you have to go back into the functions menu and edit the chaser that way, that you can't edit live right here, but that's just one of the things that QLC will not do. You have to get back in the edit mode and go back in. But in the long run, I think this is going to save you a lot of time programming this way.